Today's video is brought to you by NordVPN, making everything about your internet experience just a bit better. More on them in a bit. It could be argued that the scale of the universe is such that our minds will never be able to comprehend it. In fact, it seems very likely that even things here on Earth are far beyond what our minds could imagine at the best of times. That's one of the reasons people will refer to flooding by saying it's like 100 Olympic-sized pools, or a distance something travelled was 6 football fields. They're all ways to make something hard to comprehend a little more understandable. And when it comes to the incredible power and energy that nature can wield, it's pretty mind-blowing. Number 10. Mount St. Helens released 24 megatons of thermal energy. North America is subject to frequent hurricanes and tornadoes, as well as more than its fair share of earthquakes. And though they are rare, there are a number of volcanoes present as well that might also erupt from time to time, such as Washington State's Mount St. Helens. When it erupted back in 1980, it proved its remarkable power in terrifying ways. Starting in March of that year, a series of earthquakes were recorded in the area, and the actual volcano itself began to bulge outward by 450 feet. When it finally erupted on May the 18th, it released 24 megatons of thermal energy, which means 24 million tons of TNT. It released 520 million tons of ash and destroyed enough trees to have built 300,000 houses just with the initial lateral blast. Number 9. Turning 1 kilogram of hydrogen into helium releases as much energy as burning 20,000 tons of coal. The sun is forever engaged in a fusion reaction that turns hydrogen into helium. This produces light and heat, and it keeps us all alive. Fusion is a hell of a way to produce power, and we're all hoping that one day someone masters it down here on Earth because it would make life a lot easier. But until that time, we have to make do with things like nuclear fission, solar power, and good old fossil fuel burning. The difference between how fusion and burning coal works is so preposterous that it seems made up when you try and match it up on the same scale. By that we mean that the difference in power generated when the sun turns 1 kilogram of hydrogen into helium versus how much coal we need to burn down here on Earth to get the same amount of energy produced is just ridiculous. The reaction of 1 kilogram of hydrogen becoming helium releases 630 trillion joules, or what you'd get from burning 20,000 tons of coal. Over the course of its life, the sun will use 1.95 times 10 to the power of 29 kilograms of hydrogen. In a single second, the sun generates 3.9 times 10 to the power of 26 watts of power. To put that in perspective, in 1 second, the sun produces more power than the entire world would use in a few 100,000 years. Number 8. A hurricane's energy is 200 times the electricity generating capacity of the whole world. Hurricanes are arguably the most terrifying force of nature any of us will ever see. The destructive potential of a hurricane is hard to believe, and we've all seen the evidence of the destruction that they can produce. But how much power is behind that terrifying force? The scale is massive, and it will really put things in perspective. From the moment a hurricane is born through its cycle of destruction until its ultimate demise, it will release as much energy as 10,000 nuclear weapons. Put another way, all of that energy, and we're including cloud and rain formation, is about 200 times the amount of electricity generated across the entire planet. That's just one hurricane. We average about 6 per year, with several other storms not quite reaching hurricane status. Number 7. Krakatoa exploded with the force of 10,000 atomic bombs. In 1883, the volcano on the island of Krakatoa exploded and produced the loudest sound in the history of the world. It's estimated to have hit 310 decibels, so loud that it managed to circle the planet 4 times. It was 172 decibels 100 miles away. A jet engine will hit you with 150 decibels if you're standing right next to it. When it erupted, it went off with the force of 200 megatons of TNT. That's 10,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It's believed it killed upwards of 36,000 people. Number 6. 1 kilogram of uranium-235 produces 3 million times the heat of 1 kilogram of coal. For a long time now, people have debated the merits of nuclear power versus something like traditional coal burning. Nuclear comes with dangers, such as the potential for meltdowns and the problem of nuclear waste. Coal burning causes pollution, and as we're about to see, it's terribly inefficient by comparison. If you had 1 kilogram of uranium-235, you could generate 24 million kilowatt hours of heat. By comparison, you'll make 8 kilowatt hours from the same amount of coal. So uranium has around 3 million times the energy producing capacity of an equal amount of coal. One single uranium fuel pellet is equal to around a ton of coal. So look, it's a familiar situation. You're at the coffee shop, the airport, wherever, and there's that free Wi-Fi network that has those strong 5 bars of Wi-Fi reception. You think, could it be a trap? Could someone be looking to intercept my data, get into my personal information, my bank accounts, etc.? Well, tell you what, you can use that Wi-Fi totally safely if you have the precaution of having NordVPN installed on your PC, your Mac, your phone, whatever. Just fire up Nord, hit connect to that Wi-Fi, and do whatever you want online. No one's breaking through Nord's incredible encryption, keeping other people's eyes off your browsing. And that's all good, but that's only when you're out and about. The best thing for me about a VPN is more streaming options. Close down Netflix, fire up Nord, choose America, and boom, whole new Netflix homepage with a bunch of new shows. It works for a bunch of other streaming services as well, which is pretty nice. And also if you're shopping online, especially for digital items like games, you'll often find they're available or cheaper in other regions but not yours. Nord will solve that as well. So look, get the safety, get the cool extra stuff, streaming games, etc. Just go to nordvpn.com/TopTenz to get a 2-year plan plus an extra gift with a huge discount. And now back to today's video. Number 5. Tsunamis can produce enough power to run major cities or even countries for days. In the past few decades, there have been a couple of massively destructive tsunamis. In 2011, a tsunami hit Japan, wielding 3 petajoules of energy. That's enough to power New York for an entire week. But even that pales in comparison to one 7 years earlier. In 2004, an undersea earthquake triggered a tsunami in the Indian Ocean the day after Christmas. The power of the tsunami has been estimated to be equal to 0.1 gigatons of TNT. In more practical terms, that's as much energy as the entire United States will use in 11 days, and it works out to 3.35 exajoules. Then what the hell is an exajoule? Well, that's 1 quintillion joules. 1 calorie of food produces 4,184 joules of energy. A Big Mac, 550 calories. That means a Big Mac is equivalent to about 2.3 million joules. Divided by the exajoules in the tsunami, and it produced the energy equivalent of just under 1.46 trillion of them. That's a lot of Big Macs. Number 4. Climate change is adding energy equivalent to exploding thousands of nuclear weapons per day. These days, everyone is aware of climate change, and most people who still want to argue about it choose the man versus nature approach, which is to say, even critics have agreed that the Earth is getting warmer, they just don't agree on why. But if we all accept that the Earth is warming up, just how much energy is the Earth absorbing to do such a thing? Heat is energy, so the energy required to warm the entire planet is no small-scale achievement. Scientists studying global temperature trends tried to put it in perspective in a fairly dramatic way. Between 2005 and 2019, scientists compared the Earth's energy imbalance. This compares the amount of energy we absorb versus how much we radiate. The imbalance doubled in that time period, and the amount of extra energy the Earth is absorbing works out to 4 Hiroshima explosions occurring every single second. This is actually slightly better than the 2012 estimate by NASA climate scientists that said it was equivalent to 400,000 Hiroshimas per day, but it's not much better. Number 3. A 9.0 earthquake releases 90 times the power produced by the United States. Like any natural disaster, an earthquake packs a serious punch. The seismic power of an earthquake is typically related by the use of the Richter scale, but saying an earthquake measures a 4 on that scale doesn't really put much into perspective. Luckily, there are some equivalences that we can make. If an earthquake did register a 4 on the Richter scale, you'd consider it fairly mild, more or less. That said, it releases an energy equivalent to 1 kiloton of TNT, which sounds like quite a lot. It works out to about 1,162 megawatt hours. If the average US household uses 10.715 kilowatt hours in a year, then a 4.0 earthquake could power 108 American homes for a year. But that's just a moderate quake. Let's go up the scale to a more serious one. It's rare that an earthquake measures 9 on the scale. That's a serious quake, and they only happen every few years, if not every few decades. Based on data from the US Geological Survey, they'll release energy on par with exploding 32,000 megatons of TNT. That works out to about 1.3 trillion gigajoules. Convert that to megawatt hours, that's about 90 times the power of the entire US annual power production capacity. Number 2. The meteor that killed the dinosaurs was more powerful than the world's nuclear arsenal. Every day we go about our business with the knowledge somewhere in the back of our heads that a meteor could hit the Earth and wipe us all out in a matter of moments. It's not likely or anything, but it's happened before, so it could certainly happen again one day. And that means a meteor must be a pretty powerful thing when it touches down. We can look at a recent one to figure out just how powerful they can be. In 2013, a meteor lit up the Russian skies over the city of Chelyabinsk. The 11,000-ton rock flew through the air at 42,000 miles per hour, creating a shockwave that laid waste to 4,000 buildings. It released the energy equivalent of 30 times the bomb that exploded at Hiroshima. Powerful stuff, but as you may have noticed, the world did not end. If we go back in time, the most famous meteor in history would be the one commonly attributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs. That one was clearly more powerful than Chelyabinsk, and the scale of that power was remarkable. Researchers estimated the power of that particular blast was equal to 10 billion of the bombs dropped during the Second World War. It's enough to scorch life thousands of miles away and cover the Earth in a cloud that wiped out 75% of all life. Number 1. A supernova produces more energy than anything you could imagine. Let's leave Earth for a minute because, as powerful as nature is here, the universe at large shames our tiny blue dot. Let's go to the vastness of the great beyond, towards a star as it lashes out in its death throes. A supernova. As far as we know, this is the biggest explosion that can exist. And they can get big. So big that our efforts to try and make it sound understandable are still, frankly, ridiculous. But at least it will offer some kind of perspective. The energy released during a supernova can be around 1,044 joules. That one event will therefore release as much energy as the exploding star released during the previous 10 billion years of its existence. Imagine our sun burning as hot and bright as it does for 10 billion years. We already covered that every second it produces all the energy that Earth could use in hundreds of thousands of years. All of that for 10 billion years of time, released all over again during the supernova. That's still very insane and very hard to grasp, so we can break it down further. Let's look at one specific supernova that was observed by scientists in 2015. Called ASSASN15LH, the dying star was 580 billion times brighter than our own sun. It produced a blast that was 1 billion trillion times more powerful than the explosion of the Tsar bomber, the largest nuclear weapon ever tested. It was 30 times brighter than the entire Milky Way galaxy, itself home to 100,000 million stars.